South Korean crypto exchange Bithumb is still trying to recover about 13 billion won worth of Bitcoin that was mistakenly transferred. A key issue is whether the recipients can be held legally responsible if they refuse to return the ill-gotten gains.
한국의 가상자산 거래소 빗썸의 오지급 사고로 지급된 약 130억 원 상당의 비트코인이 아직 회수되지 못하고 있는데요. 핵심 쟁점은 해당 수령인이 반환을 거부할 경우 부당하게 얻은 이익에 대해 법적 책임을 물을 수 있느냐입니다. 13 billion worth of Bitcoin still to be recovered.
It's basically your worst nightmare ever as an employee, the story behind it. Basically, an employee was giving out prizes to some kind of event winners, 249 event winners, where they won 620,000 won. They were supposed to get in payments won.
Yes.
But instead of won, they accidentally put Bitcoin instead. So you could just imagine if you press that button and realize your mistake, how your stomach would feel after that.
I mean, if it was any other legal fiat currency, then that would have been even relatively okay.
You could get it back, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin, just the scale is humongous.
The scale, and it's also still somewhat of a gray area legally as well. But they did get most of the funds back in the form of Korean won or other cryptocurrencies. But Bithumb has been unable to retrieve those 125 Bitcoins, only 125 Bitcoins. But that's 13 billion won at the current prices. And of course, they're going to go after the remainder legally if they have to.
빗썸이 이벤트 당첨자 249명에게 비트코인을 잘못 지급했죠. 그러니까 원래는 총 62만 원을 주려고 했던 건데 직원이 원 단위를 비트코인으로 잘못 입력해서 총 62만 원이 아니라 62만 비트코인이 지급된 겁니다.
Worst mistake ever.
Yes. 아직 비트코인 125개, 현 시세로는 약 130억 원 정도는 미반환 상태인데 the question is, can they get it back? What are the legal experts weighing in? Like, how are they weighing in on the situation?
Well, they think that they probably can get it back in a civil court. The charge would be unjust enrichment. Those are those ill-gotten gains. The prize amount was clearly announced how much it was supposed to be in won, not Bitcoin. But that unjust enrichment charge usually requires returning that original asset that you got by unjust means. So the court has to decide how to apply that rule to Bitcoin because the value is always changing, of course.
It's fluctuating every second.
Right. So if you have to give back the amount that you received and it drops in value, then you have to give back more, or do you get to keep the extra if it goes over? Yes.
And what if you have already sold it?
Well, yeah, exactly. Right? Then I guess you're in trouble, right?
Right, so the legalities here are quite complex, to say the least.
Yeah, crypto cases still face a higher bar than like a mistaken bank transfer, as you mentioned. And the current Supreme Court precedent says using mistakenly sent crypto doesn't constitute embezzlement or breach of trust. So, but that, of course, could change as crypto kind of becomes more and more legitimate as a currency.
Sure. Okay, let's have a look at some expressions. To be held legally responsible.
If you're held responsible, it means you have to face what you did and you have to make up for it. And if it's legally responsible, you need to face the consequences in front of the law. So, for example, if you're held legally responsible, you might have to pay a fine or you might have to go to jail, worst case.
Yes. Very dramatic. To be held legally responsible, 법적 책임을 지다, 법적 책임을 물을 수 있다인데요. For example, the company was held legally responsible for the data breach. 그 회사는 데이터 유출에 대해 법적 책임을 지게 됐다. Parents may be held legally responsible for their child's actions. 부모가 자녀의 행동에 대해 법적 책임을 질 수도 있다.
So it starts with being held responsible, and then being held legally responsible is even more serious.
Yes. And ill-gotten gains.
So gains are things that you get or gain, and ill-gotten means you got them through illegal or kind of shady ways. So money or valuables that you got not through the correct way.
Ill-gotten gains. 여기서 ill, I-L-L은 아프다가 아니라 나쁘게, 부정하게 이고 gotten, 얻어진, gain, 이익, 수익, ill-gotten gains, 부당이득, 불법으로 얻은 이득,
네.
and so on. Here's the article again. South Korean crypto exchange Bithumb is still trying to recover about 13 billion won worth of Bitcoin that was mistakenly transferred. A key issue is whether the recipients can be held legally responsible if they refuse to return the ill-gotten gains. Okay, let's now move on to overseas ETPs.
Younger investors are showing a stronger preference for overseas stocks. Overseas ETPs account for roughly 60% of total investments for those in their 20s, showing that the young are casting a wider net and thinking globally.
젊은 투자자일수록 해외 주식에 대한 선호가 더 강한 것으로 나타났습니다. 특히 20대는 전체 투자금의 약 60%를 해외 ETP에 투자하고 있는데요. 이는 젊은 층이 투자 범위를 넓혀 글로벌하게 분산 투자하고 있음을 보여줍니다. So the young are turning to the overseas market. They are allocating a bigger share of their portfolio to the overseas market.
Right, we talked about ETFs before, exchange traded funds. Now we're talking about ETPs, exchange traded products, which is a broader term. An ETF is a type of ETP. So yeah, investors in their 20s and 30s have much higher shares of those overseas stocks and ETPs. If you measure it by holdings, younger groups showed an even stronger preference for that overseas investing. So those in their 20s, about 60% of their portfolios were in overseas ETPs alone. Then people in their 30s accounted or allocated 45.5% to those abroad ETPs. And then from the 40s onward, it starts to gradually decline and people invest more at home as they get older.
Right, I think because they want to stay safe, like play it safe and invest in what they are more familiar with.
Right, because investing abroad, it can be like you're sending your money off into the ether. You know, you kind of want to have it at home with something that you understand. Yeah.
Right, so you have to listen to Econ Lounge to keep up with the latest economic news globally.
Mondays on Evening Special.
That's right. 자, 젊을수록 포트폴리오에 해외 ETP 비율이 더 높은 것으로 나타났는데요. 20대는 전체의 60%, 30대 역시 45.5%였고 40대부터는 해외 자산 비중이 점점 줄어드는 대신 국내 주식 비중은 늘어나는 경향을 보였습니다.
네.
Then what about by gender? Are there any differences?
Yes, so the average number of holdings total was higher for women than for men. So that means that women diversify more across individual assets. But a closer look at the portfolio composition shows women allocate a larger share to domestic stocks than men. So women are pointing their money more closer to home. But in terms of total value, men's average portfolio size is about 30% larger than women's.
In terms of the total size.
Yeah, so there's that wage gap, maybe.
Okay, perhaps, yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, let's have a look at some expressions. The first one, cast a wider net.
Which is a fishing expression originally. Casting a net means throwing it out. If you put it wider, obviously you're going to catch more fish, hopefully, or that's the idea. So you expand your search or you expand your efforts wider.
Right. Cast, 던지다, net, 그물, wider, 더 넓은. 그물을 더 넓게 던지다라는 뜻이죠.
Yep.
즉, 범위를 넓혀 찾다, 노리다라는 뜻이고요. Think globally.
Think globally, pretty self-explanatory. You have a wider view when you're thinking or when you're looking at something. So you look at the big picture when making decisions. You look at the wider impact, the more global impact.
글로벌 관점으로 생각하다. 그래서 동학개미들은 you can say that they are thinking locally. 서학개미들은 they are thinking globally. You can make those two comparisons.
Yep.
Here's the article again. Younger investors are showing a stronger preference for overseas stocks. Overseas ETPs account for roughly 60% of total investments for those in their 20s, showing that the young are casting a wider net and thinking globally.